HOA Karen tried to take my property, so I built a 20-foot wall in revenge. Tom's peaceful life in his new home quickly turned into a battle for his rights when Karen, the overbearing HOA president, tried to take away part of his backyard. What began as a simple dispute soon escalated into a full-blown war when Tom built a 20-foot wall in defiance of her control. As the situation intensified, Tom's actions became a symbol of resistance, capturing the attention of his neighbors and the city. Do you think Tom's decision to build the wall was justified, or was it an overreaction to HOA rules? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to watch the full story to see how this conflict unfolds and whether Tom's stand changes everything for the neighborhood. Tom had just moved into his new home in a quiet neighborhood, thinking that he had finally escaped the noise of the city. The backyard was spacious, peaceful, and perfect for the garden he had been planning for a long time. He envisioned himself sitting back on the porch, sipping lemonade, living the dream life of a family man. But that dream shattered the moment Karen showed up at his door. Tom had heard of Karen before, the kind of neighbor who always thinks the world revolves around her, but he didn't expect to meet someone like her so soon. Karen wasn't just an ordinary neighbor. She was a force to be reckoned with. A middle-aged woman with a fairly full figure and shoulder-length golden brown hair. She always wore a black suit, looking like she had just stepped out of a corporate meeting rather than a casual conversation with a neighbor. But it was clear that her appearance radiated power, and she believed she had the right to control everything. "I'm sorry to inform you," Karen began, her voice full of confidence, "but part of your backyard doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the HOA, community property." Tom stared at her as if she had just told him he won the lottery, but with the fine print saying, "But now we're taking it back." "That's definitely not how it works," he replied, feeling irritation begin to rise. "Oh, but it does," Karen retorted. "The HOA is always right." And so Tom was introduced to the suburban nightmare that would change his life in the months to come. And if he had to fight, he wouldn't let Karen get away with it. Who would be afraid of a Karen in a black suit with a clipboard in hand? Since the HOA meeting, things had taken a turn for the worse very quickly. Tom had prepared himself for legal battles, but Karen's actions were far beyond what he had imagined. After a few days, he received unreasonable violation notices from the HOA. "Your garden doesn't meet the standards." A reason that left him dumbfounded, as his garden was always neatly trimmed like a picture-perfect landscape. But no, the HOA claimed he was doing it wrong, even though anyone could clearly see that it was perfect. Then came another warning about his outdoor chairs not being in compliance. The simple, cute set of chairs Tom had bought just to enjoy his mornings was now under scrutiny by the HOA and subjected to a fine for being inadequate design. Tom sat there shocked, staring at the chair Karen called a community obstruction, and wondered if anyone in this neighborhood knew how to sit on a chair properly. Every time Tom opened his door to get the mail, he wondered, what am I going to get fined for this time? For having a swing in the garden? For trees growing in the wrong direction? Or for the roof color not being correct enough? Tom thought, feeling ridiculous. It felt like every time he breathed, Karen could find a reason to issue a fine. But this time, things were different. This time, Tom had enough evidence, and he was determined not to let Karen get away with her antics anymore. But he didn't just want to protest through paperwork. He needed a more powerful move. After sitting and thinking for hours, searching for any way to make Karen eat her words, Tom came up with a crazy idea, but it might just be the only way to deal with Karen. He would not only defend his land, but he would make sure Karen would never dare step foot on it again. "That's it!" Tom said to himself as he came up with the perfect plan. A wall. Not a tiny fence like others build. A wall, 20 feet high. But he knew this was a delusional idea, and it would definitely attract a lot of attention in the neighborhood. But that didn't matter. He could already hear Karen's laughter echoing in the distance. And if she thought he would easily back down, she was wrong. Tom started looking into building regulations in the area. Surely there's some loophole in the city regulations that I can exploit, he thought. After researching the wall height regulations, he discovered some good news. In the backyard area, there were no height restrictions for structures as long as they didn't affect public utilities. Tom's mood at that moment could be described as crazy happy. He had the permit to build a 20-foot wall without breaking the law. Not only that, but Tom also thought that if he was going to do this, he might as well make it impressive, a truly remarkable wall. Without wasting any time, he hired a construction team and began preparing for his great project. He joked with the construction crew, "You guys are going to feel like you're building a fortress, right?" Mike, one of the workers, looked at Tom with confusion. "Did you say you're building something like a fortress? Are you serious?" Tom nodded with a determined expression. "If Karen wants war, we'll give her a proper one." Despite Mike shaking his head and chuckling, the construction team got to work. Not long after, a giant truck loaded with concrete slabs and steel reinforcements arrived at Tom's yard. As the wall began to rise, Tom felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Every brick felt like a statement, every layer of cement a step forward in the fight. It didn't take long for Karen to find out. Just a few hours into the construction, she stormed in, walking quickly like a whirlwind, her eyes filled with fury. "What the hell is this?" Karen shouted, pointing at the wall being built. Tom calmly sat on the porch, sipping his coffee, and replied, "Oh, just a little home improvement project, Karen." Karen turned red with anger, holding the HOA regulation paper, but she could do nothing but stand there and watch the wall grow taller. "You can't do this! This violates HOA policies." "Sorry, but according to city regulations, I'm not doing anything wrong. You can review the city laws if you want," Tom responded with a light smile. Karen was so angry she couldn't say anything else. She simply turned and walked away. But Tom knew this story was far from over. However, at least this wall would be the first mark in the unrelenting fight he was about to begin. Tom's wall construction was progressing rapidly. In the early days, he felt like a king building his castle, with every brick carefully laid and every steel column reinforced firmly. As the days went by, the wall grew taller and taller, drawing increasing attention from the neighborhood residents. Some even stood outside the fence, applauding his courage. But Karen, unable to sit idly by, began rallying the full force of the HOA board. As soon as she saw the towering wall, she couldn't keep her composure any longer. One day, as she was inspecting the project, she suddenly appeared, her eyes sparkling with fury. "Tom, what on earth do you think you're building?" Karen shouted, her voice full of anger. "What do you think you're doing? This is a residential area, not a fortress." Tom stood firm, leaning against a concrete column, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Oh, Karen, it's just a little home improvement project. If you don't like it, feel free to check with the city to see if there's any regulation stopping me." Karen stormed up, slamming the HOA regulation paper on the table, her eyes sharp as daggers. This is the rule. This wall is a serious violation. The HOA won't let this slide." Tom remained unfazed, shrugging casually. "Sorry, but you might want to review the city regulations. All the permits and paperwork are in order. You can't stop me." Karen took a deep breath, struggling to contain her fury. "You think you're going to win this? The HOA can make your life here a living hell. I'll report this to the city. I'll sue you, and there will be severe consequences for you." Tom straightened up, his smile calm yet confident. "If you want war, we'll have war. But remember, I've done my homework, and I'm not doing anything wrong." As the days passed, the situation grew increasingly tense. Karen didn't stop trying to sabotage the project. One morning, Tom woke up to find the construction sign had been removed, along with an official notice from the city. The project must cease immediately, it said. But Tom didn't pay much attention to it, knowing the city couldn't stop him as long as everything was properly documented. One weekend morning, while Tom was enjoying a cup of coffee on his porch, a group from the HOA unexpectedly showed up, led by Karen and a few other board members. They stood before the wall, staring at it as if facing a great threat. Unable to contain herself, Karen charged straight at Tom. "Listen up, Tom. This is your last warning. If you don't stop this construction immediately, we'll sue you and demand you tear down the wall." Tom calmly looked at her, not even bothering to look up from the newspaper he was reading. "Oh? And you think you'll win? I've done everything by the book, so don't think you can scare me." Another board member, Mr. Roger, spoke up. Tom, maybe we don't agree with the way you're doing this, but we don't want to escalate things further. Let's just leave it be. You don't need to go this far. Tom turned to look at Mr. Roger, offering a slight, knowing smile. You don't agree? But you stay silent when Karen here is tormenting me. That's right. Everyone knows who she is. Karen immediately snapped back, her voice nearly exploding. You think you're clever? You have no idea about the power of the HOA. I've been doing this for years. Don't think you can just defeat me this easily. Tom took a step forward toward Karen, looking her straight in the eyes, his voice cold. You've abused your power for too long, and now it's time for you to pay. People are watching, and they're not afraid of you anymore. The tension among the board members was palpable. Some exchanged furtive glances, but no one dared speak out in support of Karen. Tom wasn't just standing up against an individual, he was fighting for the entire community. A few days after the wall was completed, Tom received a letter. Not a party invitation or a congratulatory note, but a court notice informing him that Karen had officially filed a lawsuit against him. Tom's expression didn't change, and he wasn't the least bit fazed. Karen wasn't giving up, and this time she was taking the case to the highest level to crush everything. But Tom had prepared. Not only did he have solid evidence, but he had also gathered proof of every instance where Karen had abused her power. He knew that this was the moment, and it was his opportunity to end it all. Not only would he protect his land, but he would also make Karen pay for her malicious actions. The day of the trial arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. As Tom entered the courtroom, he felt not just the cold chill of the room, but the immense pressure of the lawsuit. Karen was already there, sitting smugly, as if she knew she was going to win. But her smugness quickly faded when she saw Tom standing firm, calm, and collected. Tom walked up to the stand and looked Karen in the eye without hesitation. Karen, he said, his voice echoing in the courtroom, you can't keep abusing your power. Not anymore. I've prepared all the evidence, documents, and testimonies proving the wrongdoing you've committed. You will pay for this. Tom's words were like a slap to Karen's face, making her unable to sit still. The entire courtroom fell silent, as if waiting for Tom's next words. And as Tom finished his statement, his cold stare swept over the room, as if delivering a clear declaration of war. It didn't take the court long to deliver a verdict. The light of justice shone through, and Tom, with his persistence and careful preparation, emerged victorious. Karen didn't just lose, she was also heavily penalized for her abuse of power and illegal actions over the years. Not only that, but the HOA, the organization she had manipulated and tormented so many people with, was also dissolved. Tom stood there, taking a deep breath. It wasn't out of arrogance, but because he had truly protected his rights and his family. He hadn't just regained his land, but he had also helped the community break free from Karen and the HOA's tyranny. After the court ruled in his favor, Tom walked out of the courtroom feeling much lighter. He no longer felt the pressure, no longer felt the anxiety that had loomed over his life for so long. Tom had won. Not just a lawsuit, but a victory in the fight for his own rights, the rights of his family, and for the community that had been oppressed under Karen's rule. Karen, with her angry and defeated face, sat silently in the courtroom. But soon after, she was forced to leave, her life now in ruins. The title of powerful HOA president that Karen had once been proud of was now just a distant memory. She couldn't help but realize that the power she once had was shattered by Tom, and perhaps she would have to live with that humiliation for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, life in Tom's neighborhood returned to peace. The community was no longer living in fear, no longer suffering from the unreasonable rules and baseless threats from the HOA. The residents, who had once been silent out of fear, began to speak up, sharing their stories of Karen's abuse of power. They felt liberated, and for the first time in a long time, they could live freely, no longer under control. And the wall, the massive wall Tom had built not only to protect his land, but to fight against oppression, had become a symbol of resistance, of resilience, and of courage. An indelible symbol. People started calling it the Wall of Freedom, and gradually, it became an unmissable landmark in the neighborhood. Day by day, the neighborhood changed. People grew more united. They shared their stories of being mistreated by Karen and the HOA, and this change didn't just happen overnight. The residents, no longer afraid, started making small improvements to their homes without needing HOA approval. Families began taking care of their gardens in their own way, creating a beautiful and free living space. Then one day, a group of students approached Tom with a bold idea. They wanted to paint a massive mural on the wall, a mural not just reflecting resistance, but also honoring the values of freedom and rights. After some consideration, Tom agreed, and within weeks the wall became a vibrant work of art, featuring Karen, now depicted as an angry cartoon character, with Tom standing beside her, arms wide like a hero. Large letters appeared: "Never let a HOA Karen win." The mural became a powerful symbol, and soon after, the park around the wall began to attract many visitors. People from other neighborhoods, from distant cities, started coming to admire the Wall of Freedom. Tom couldn't believe that his crazy decision had made such a huge impact. The park had become a famous tourist spot, with visitors coming to take pictures, share their stories, and celebrate rights and freedom. One beautiful morning, as Tom was cleaning up in front of his house and gazing at the legendary wall, he received a letter from the city council. At first, he thought it was just a typical notice about taxes or some administrative issue, but when he opened it, he could hardly believe his eyes. The city government wanted to buy his land and turn it into an official public park. They offered him a significant sum for it, and even wanted to rename the park Karen's Memorial Park, the Freedom Park. Tom sat down, smiling softly. He had fought, and now he was receiving an unexpected reward. Though the money was tempting, Tom knew that this park and his wall were not for sale. He had won for the right reasons, and nothing could change that. "No, I'm not selling," Tom decided. "Instead, I want to turn it into a public space where everyone can come freely, participate, and experience it. And on the sign, I will inscribe a message: never let a HOA Karen win." What do you think of Tom's ultimate victory? Was it a triumph for individual rights, or just an unfortunate escalation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like Tom's.